Let's come. Okay. Siyaita the Shmaya Shabbos Parsha Shmini. That year, Parsha Spara was Parsha Shmini. Mevorch Machodesh Nisan Tov Shnir Al. Vidaber Havaya Moshe Ve'Elan Leimer. Havaya spoke to Moshe and said, Zois Chuksa Torah. This is the chuk of the Torah. Ketziva Havaya Goymer. That Hashem commanded, etc. V'yikvu Elach Paradum Goymer. They shall take for your Paradum. When you understand why does he have to repeat and say that Hashem commanded? Like we had this question also in the previous mind. The Ray said, since the Ray says this is what Hashem told Moshe and Aaron, why does he have to say again? This is the chukas Torah. Asher Tziva Havaya. Hashem already said that it's Tziva Havaya. And should have said, Vavleel Meimer, Vidaber Havaya, Moshe Ve'Elan Leimer, Dabra Bnei Yisrael, Yicholach Paradum, like in many, many mitzvahs in the Torah, it says, Hashem spoke to Moshe, or Moshe and Aaron, he said, do this and this, or tell the Yidden to do this and this. It doesn't say that Hashem told Moshe and Aaron to tell them that this is what Hashem commanded. Also, when you understand also, if you're going to already say that Hashem commanded, and you're quoting Hashem's words, so it's saying like this: Hashem said, "This is the laws of the Paraduma." So it's quoting Hashem. So then it should have said, Hashem is like saying about himself, "This is what I should say. This is what you should say about this." You should have said, instead of Asher Tziva Havaya, if you're already going to say that, you should say, instead of Havaya, you should say Asher Tzivisi, that I commanded. Why does he say Asher Tziva Havaya? The Hilim of Medrash Isa, and the Medrash is brought down. Shloimeh Higia leParshas Paraduma Amar, when Shloimeh HaMelech, who was the Chacham Kol Adam, the wisest person, when he was studying the Torah and he eventually hit the laws of Paraduma, he said, Amarti Echa Kama V'Yirchoykam Emeni. I have been wise, I've tried to be wise, and it's distant from me. The pasuk in Kehelah. What is this? So the meaning behind this is Shakala Mitzvah Shabbat Torah Hisik time. That by Shlomo HaMelech, he said that all the mitzvahs in the Torah was able to comprehend the reasons behind those mitzvahs. He was able to understand the why of those mitzvahs. Al Paraduma Amar V'Yirchoykam. Or on Paraduma, he said, it's distant from me. So every other mitzvah in the Torah, 612 mitzvahs of the Torah, he was able to understand. Paraduma, that was beyond. Sorry, we did understand. In the mitzvahs of the Torah, there are other mitzvahs that fall into the category of chukim, of super rational mitzvahs. Why was Paradum distinct and different from all other super rational mitzvahs that fall into the category known as chukim, as decrees? Shekol ha-mitzvahs kama chukim hisi. All the other mitzvahs that fall into the category of super rational decrees, choik, a decree, that he could understand. The Davkal Paraduma specifically, of all the chukim, only Paraduma, Amar V'Yirchoykam, and he said it's distant from me, it's beyond my understanding. In a similar vein, we see also something similar to this by Moshe Rabbeinu. So Medrash al Pasuk V'Yichu Elecha, so too it says on the Pasuk, on our Pasuk in the Parsha Para, where it says V'Yichu Elecha Paradum. Why again the Medrash? I want to know, why does it say V'Yichu Elecha Paradum? Similar to the Chazal's question on Atat Tzavim, it says V'Yichu Elecha Shem Zayza. Why does it say to Moshe that they should take to you? What's the significance of to you? So the Chazal pulled the word to you out and learned from that a specific drash. So Hashem told Moshe, to you, to you, I will reveal the reason of the Paraduma. But to others, I'm not revealing the reason of para aduma. By everyone else, this remains a super rational decree. So, in a similar vein, the question over here is also why specifically this. You'd understand since the reason of other mitzvahs, even super rational mitzvahs, even those that fall into the category of chukim, others are able to know if it is gulal upon them, at least certain special individuals, not everybody knows in Canaan and movement, so it's not understood. Why did they not know the reason of paraduma? This he revealed specifically to Moshe. So what is it about paraduma that is so completely different that is something that why Mamel couldn't understand, and even Moshe couldn't understand, but he needed the Eibush to reveal it to him. How come? Explains now, and here we're going to go into what we had at the end of the previous Maamar about Rotzi V'Shoiv, about Paraduma being connected with Rotzi V'Shoiv, and he's going to elaborate a lot about the Rotzi V'Shoiv topic, which in the previous Maamar he didn't really elaborate upon that so much. Second paragraph on the first page. The idea behind this is the exhibit says in the pasuk V'Chayis Rotzi V'Shoiv that in the Navi Cheskel, where he describes Merkavel Yoina, and he describes different malachim that he saw. So he says the malachim that are called Chayas are rushing forth and return. Pirish Apashad, who the simple meaning of what Yecheskel is talking about in this nevuah, the Chayas, Koyal Chayas HaKodesh, the Chayas are called, are referring to the malachim. The malachim, there's Srafim, Eifanim, like we know. And there's Chayes HaKodesh, the Malachim, they're called Chayes HaKodesh. So Yecheskel says he sees that they're going up and back. That's one meaning in the pasuk V'Chayes Rotzi V'Shoiv. A deeper meaning according to Chassidus and Kabbalah. There's another explanation. There's the Chayes Koi ala Chayes Ha'alaki from Mahav. Shehi b'Bchinas Rotzi V'Shoiv. When it's talking about the chayis is rushing towards Hashem, Rotzi, and then returning, it's referring to the godly life force and energy, the vitality of Hashem that gives life to this world. And that vitality that gives life to the world, it's in a way of rushing towards Hashem and returning back from Hashem. In truth, both explanations. That the chayes are going on the malachim called chayes, or the chayes is talking about the vitality, the energy of the world, is really one concept. The reason why the malachim that are called chayes are rushing towards Hashem and pulling back, because the godly life that brings into existence all the worlds from the top of all levels and to the end of all levels. And that also includes the Chayes HaKodesh, the Malachim. It's in a way of rushing towards Hashem and it's returning. And every effect and every cause affects similar to it. Therefore, also the malachim that are called Chayes HaKodesh are also Rotzi V'Shoiv. So in other words, like this, there's in the order of things, there's the life force of the world that's rushing towards Hashem, then returns to the world, rushing towards Hashem, returns towards the world. Malachim that are called Chayes reflect that, because since it's their Chayes as well, not just the entire world, it's their Chayes. So they reflect that as well, that they are also rushing towards Hashem and return. And the truth is, it's not just the Chayes Halaki, it's not just the Chayes HaKodesh. We said, Kol Poil B'dugmasei, that anything that affects something else, it will make the other thing be like it. So if we say that the Chayes of all the Seder Ishtalshus, of all the world, is in a way of Rotzi V'Shuv. So that means not just the Malachim that are called Chayes should have Rotzi V'Shoiv, but also every aspect of creation should have Rotzi V'Shoiv as well. So the Rebbe says, Einachanami, it is that way. Kein Gaman Abraham Lamata, so too it's in the creation down below. Shinirim Lenefrodim, they seem like separate beings. In a Gamba Hemachais of Kins Rotzi V'Shoiv, in Pikadoliba, also in the Nevroim down here. That seem to be something separate from godliness. They don't look like they have a godly life force that's giving them chayas. They also have Rotzi V'Shoiv. Where is that expressed? That's expressed in the pulse. The pulse is also something the blood is flowing to the heart, from the heart. Blood carries the life force and energy of a person. And this idea of the pulse applies to all living creatures. So we see even in this low world that we have this manifestation of kol poil kedugmasa, that everything that's affected is like the thing that affects it. So just like the life force and energy of the world is Rotzi V'Shoiv, the same thing the Nevroim are also Rotzi V'Shoiv. And the same thing the Chayes are Rotzi V'Shoiv, the Malachim called Chayes. So if so, why does the Pasuk say V'Chayes Rotzi V'Shoiv, meaning either the energy of the world is Rotzi V'Shoiv or the Malachim called Chayes? If the entire creation is Rotzi V'Shoiv, why does say Chayes? Difference is why only these two are pointed out. Raksha Hafresh with the difference between the way there's Rotzi V'Shuv in the Nevroim down here below versus the way Rotzi V'Shuv is expressed, for example, in the Chayes HaKodesh, the Malachim, it's Chayes HaKodesh. V'chein kol Nevroim shemargishim Chayes HaLaki, because the holy beasts, those Malachim, and the same holds true for all types of creations that are sensitive and are aware to the godly life force. Shemamelo, automatically top of the second page, Margishim Heimarotzi V'Shuv Shebachayis Halaki. Automatically, they sense the Rotzi V'Shoiv that's in the godly life force, since they are open to godliness. Therefore, the give and take, the Rotzi V'Shoiv, in all spiritual beings, in all beings are sensitive to godliness. So the Rotzi V'Shoiv is something revealed, like the Chayes HaKodesh, like the Malachim over there. You see they're rushing towards Hashem and pulling back. As opposed to the creatures down there below, they do not feel or aware, they do not have an awareness of the godly life force. The drawing towards Hashem and the returning that's concealed. So in, let's say, the physical world, where we don't have an awareness of Hashem, so this is concealed. Therefore, what component of their being is Rotzi V'Shoiv? Not something that they are in control of, but it's the pulse, which a person doesn't control their pulse. At least not in the sense of being Rotzi V'Shoiv. A person has the koiches to like slow down his heartbeat, okay, but it's still the very Rotzi V'Shoiv is not something that I can choose. The Malachim Darachai is we choose to have their Rotzi to Hashem, their Shoiv from Hashem, because they have a conscious awareness of Hashem. Whereas the creations down here that have no conscious awareness of Hashem, the Rotzi of Hashem, the Rotzi of Shoiv expresses itself in something that's happened subconsciously out of their control. Therefore, the life force and vitality in the creations down here is in the idea of the pulse. And the pulse is something that is not in their control. But matters that have to do and are connected with the creation's work and service down here. And the Rotzi V'Shoiv did not have the idea of Rotzi V'Shoiv because they did not have an awareness of the Chayes HaLaki, that the Chayes HaLaki is Rotzi V'Shoiv. Any questions before we go on? Second paragraph on page 34, second page of the mind. In a The reason why the godly life force is in such a way, we said that the old Nevraim have it because the godly life force is Ratz V'Shoy. Why is the godly life force in such a type of way? He says, well, is because the life force and vitality that brings into being the world to Chinas Ha'ara Bilbad is only a ray of Hashem. Because, like it says in the pasuk, Malchus Lamit. Your kingship is the kingship and the rulership of all the worlds. So what does that mean? That means from the level of being a king, that's how all the world gets its chayes. And kingship, Malchus, it's only a ray. The fact that a person's a king, that's not their essence. Their essence is who they are, their very personhood. Being a king is an external manifestation, how they relate to the populace. But the king, by himself, in his own private chambers, he is way beyond the idea of kingship. So the idea of Malchus is only a ray of Hashem. Because it's a ray, the Liyash is Zeh Ha'ara, since the chayes of the world is only a ray, it's only coming from Malchus. Whenever you're talking about a ray needs to have a source where the ray emanated from, where the ray was drawn down from. When this ray was initially part of its source, before it came down to be Spheres HaMalchus, it is in a much higher state, like the sunlight. There's the sunlight, the way it exits the sun. So this talks about, and then there's the sunlight, the way it's still included and part of the sun. So it's understood that the sunlight, the way it's still part of the sun, is in a much more powerful state than the way the sunlight came out. Now we can understand why there's a Ratzi V'Shoy. Because it was so much higher and greater when it was in its source. So it wants to return to that. It wants to go back to that source that was in before, because it wants to have that greater level. That's the idea of the Ratzi, that all the godly life forces experience, because they realized how they descended in comparison to what they were before. And then, once you have the Ratzi, what happens next? He atzma, very awareness of its source, may via Sashuv also brings about that it returns back down and outside and giving chayas to the world. How come? Since the ha'ara, the ray, feels and is aware of its source, and the will and the desire of the source is that the oir, the malchus, the ha'ara, should be down here below. That was the whole reason why initially the ray left its source, the ray left the luminary to come out and went down here below. So because of feeling of the and being aware of the will of its source, that's a level of the return of shuv. Now the Rebbe says, if so, this should be all pervasive. This should be everywhere. Everywhere we should have the idea of Ratzui Bishop. Why is it a level where it's not Ratzui Bishop? So he says, where do we see it now? The fact that there are created beings that are not in such a type of way of rushing towards its source and then returning. Included in this is also the neshamas that are created beings. Though neshamas brought down chassidus, its godliness that was transformed into a creation. Not like other creations that godliness gives the creation life and vitality, but creation itself is not godliness. The neshama itself is godliness. The baby became a niv. And despite the fact that it's godliness that became a nivra, it's not constantly in a state of rushing towards Hashem and returning. Yes, there are changes in the neshamas. Sometimes they are in a way of doing service to Hashem, and over there, I guess there's more of the Rotzi. And sometimes they are not in a state of avodah; they're not really doing anything. The reason why the neshamas don't experience this, the reason, what we explained, that why are the neshamas, is the life force vitality of the world in a way of rushing towards Hashem and return, and that is because the chayis is only a ray. It's only a cause that brings along the result that there should be Ratz v'shoy. And therefore, in Eilu on the Broim, She'ein Margishim as Mekoidam, Ein Abches Ratz v'shoy. Therefore, those creations that do not feel and are not aware of their source, as we mentioned before, they're not in a state of rushing towards Hashem and returning. For this reason, Gam ben neshama atzma, also dealing with the neshama itself. Shechamish Hashem is nikrula. The neshama, the Medrash says, was called by 5 names, and the 5 names are not just 5 names, but each name indicates a different level. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chay, yechida. In echela kan neshama she chavuka ba. The part in the neshama, in other words, the yechida, or even to a certain degree chaya, which is embracing and cleaving you in a that part of neshama is in a state of rushing towards Hashem and pulling back because of that awareness and feeling of its source and its life force and vitality. As opposed to the nefesh ruach neshama of the neshama. It's not constantly in a state of Ratz v'shuv. It's that totally ba'avoida v'yegia daf. And the neshama, the naran, needs to work on, needs toil, needs to put in effort. So that's the only way that the naran will have Ratz v'shuv. It's not automatic. It's not. It senses the source because it doesn't sense its source. Since it doesn't sense its source, then the rand of the neshama needs to work on it, needs to appreciate it, needs to meditate and think about where it came from initially, and therefore that will bring it to a rotzi. And then it has to think about what is Hashem's purpose in making it, because he wanted it to be down here, so then it's going to bring it to a shoy. But that all takes work and effort. All of the above that we said, that Ratzi v'shuv comes to the chayas and in all the nevroim, that's only in the parts of the nevroim that relate to the oiros. It's only a result of the oiros. Chassidus explains that the oir that inhabits all the different nevroim are called dvekis nikeres. It is a recognizable cleaving to Hashem. You can recognize it's open and felt its connection with the source. Like light is openly and revealed way connected to the luminary. Therefore, they have this type of relationship of rushing and returning. Only the light. I'm sorry, I skipped a line. But the vessels, they on their own, being that they're only vessels to receive the light, they are not cleaving to the source because they're in a revealed and recognizable way. All of them are really connected. The kalim, the others are connected to the source. But the difference is the kalim's connection with the source is in a way that's not recognizable. Therefore, in the mitzad atzmam enim b'chinas ratzav v'shuv, left to its own devices, the kelim do not express and do not feel to this idea of ratzav v'shuv. But still in all, v'raka oir megala b'hem sh'yeh b'chinas ratzav v'shuv. By the oir shining into the kelim, it reveals in them, since ultimately even the kelim come from the chayes halaki, and the chayes halaki have a level of ratzav v'shoiv, and the oiris have a ratzav v'shoiv. So it reveals in the kelim that type of connection that it also wishes to become part of its source, and then realize that the purpose is to return. The very fact that the kelim themselves are not in the way of rushing towards Hashem and returning, that itself is the cause that there's the rushing for Hashem and the returning of Hashem in the light. In other words, like this, the kelims, if you will, block it. And the kelim's darkness are why the Oiris experience the Ratzav V'shuv. Since the kelim are not in the state of Ratzav V'shuv, they are an opposite of the light. That's why the light is in the state of rushing out. I don't want to deal with a keli. A keli is a dark thing. I want to go up to my source, where over there there's true light and true revelation, what I really relate to. So the very non-Ratzav V'shuv nature of the kelim evoke in the oil that the oil should have a rot. The kelim are opposites of the oil because they don't experience Ratzav V'shuv. That causes that the oil should be in a way of rushing towards Hashem. Also afterwards in the return, where the oil has come back down, since the light meets up with something that's opposite from the light, it like bumps into something the opposite of it, like we said before. It's impossible for it to be consistently settled in the kelim because it's after all opposites. It's like at loggerheads. Whatever settling in the kelim, it's only temporary. Just like the bond and the connection of the neshama and the body, that they're really two opposites. The bond is only by the way that Hashem, who does wonders, can connect the soul and the body. That's the meaning of Mafli Lasis, says in the Mefarshim Fukunah. Because it's something unnatural for these two opposites of the neshama and guf to come together. Even the life force and vitality of the neshama and the body is in the way of ratzi and shoiv, reflected as well in the pulse. In a similar vein, when we deal with oiris and kelim, since the vessels are the opposite of the lights, the way the lights are enclosed in the vessels are in a way of rushing towards Hashem and returning. And the fact that in the oil there is this Ratzav V'shuv, so then it also causes that the kelim themselves, it evokes and brings the kelim along that experience and to want also to be absorbed in higher and connect with higher, and then return down here because that is the purpose. Any questions?